or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the tackle?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers rode into Oklahoma City and put a beat down on the team with the NBA's best record. The Lakers dominated OKC with a surprising 126-99 win. 30 points and 6 assists for Luka Doncic. LeBron had 19 points and 7 assists. The Lakers play OKC again Tuesday night. The Clippers are off until Wednesday. Their 4-game winning streak has them in a tie for 5th place in the Western Conference with Golden State, Memphis, and Minnesota. The Connecticut women's basketball team had to beat USC and UCLA in the NCAA tournament before winning the national championship on Sunday. It was still a marvelous season for the USC and UCLA programs. Both teams were in the top 5 most of the season and put LA on the map in women's college basketball. UCLA was ranked number 1 in the nation for 14 weeks. USC and UCLA finished the season with a combined 65-7 record. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
After producing an award-winning climate justice campaign in 2024, KBLA Talk 1580 has gone all in on its 2025 Climate Justice plus Black Health Initiative. April is Minority Health Month, and Urban Family Focus, in partnership with Providence Health Systems, presents The Heart of the Matter. Providence doctors and health equity officers will participate in informative and life-changing conversations on hypertension, health equity, behavioral health, and community engagement. Don't miss these empowering conversations on Urban Family Focus every Saturday in April at 7 and Sunday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Sponsored by Providence, Southern California's largest and most comprehensive health care network. We've got a lot to talk about on KBLA Talk 1580. Download the KBLA 1580 app or log in to KBLA1580.com. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. On KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavismiley.com. That's thetavismiley.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, a conversation with longtime Vanity Fair contributing editor Michael Joseph Gross, who has published investigative reporting, essays, and books about culture, religion, politics, business, and technology. So trust and believe, I got plenty of questions for him today. Michael's latest book is called Stronger, The Untold Story of Muscle in Our Lives. So if you're getting up there in age and you've never picked up a weight, hour 2 is curated just for you. In our third hour,
there's a person you have never heard of who may be one of the most influential thinkers in the right-wing and white nationalist space in this country. His name is Curtis Yarvin. Let me say it again, Curtis Yarvin. He founded the anti-egalitarian and the anti-democratic movement known as the Dark Enlightenment or neo-reactionary movement. This movement believes democracy is a failed experiment and must be replaced by a monarchy or a dictatorship.
Senior pastor of the famed Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago, Otis Moss III, joins us to unpack his most recent viral video, which has exploded on the internet. This particular video is about the puppet masters controlling the puppet. Moss introduces us to a person you have likely never heard of, but might be one of, as you heard him say a moment ago, one of the most influential thinkers in the right wing and white nationalist space in America today. His name, once again, is Curtis Yarvin, and we will talk about him in Hour 3 with the Right Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III. But in this first hour today, two more conversations on the B side of this hour. Let's talk politics with Boston Globe Associate Editor and columnist Renee Graham. And speaking of politics, we commence today's show with the nation's first ever Korean-American member of the United States Senate, New Jersey's Andy Kim. Senator Kim, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again.
It's my great honor to have you back on this program. Let me start with this. There's some other issues I want to cover with you between now and the bottom of the hour when I lose you. So a few things I want to walk through here swiftly. But let me start with this, of course, the obvious question to my mind, at least. You are the junior senator from New Jersey. The senior senator from New Jersey is a guy named Cory Booker. I was just reading a piece this morning, literally, and the headline of the piece got my attention. The headline of the piece was Cory Booker's 25-hour speech a filibuster, a protest, or a 25-hour performative stunt? The answer, yes. Was it a 25-hour filibuster, a protest, or a 25-hour performative stunt? The answer is yes in the article that I was reading earlier today. But I am curious, given that he is your colleague from the state of New Jersey, what you made of Cory Booker's 25-hour speech.
Yeah, I was so proud of him for what he did. Being able to, what I would say it was 25 hours of just being a person that is concerned about the trajectory of our country. He was able to really just find a way to be able to break through a lot of the noise out there right now and be able to get people's attention and be able to break them out of, just the silos that we often are in on social media and whatnot, and just be able to speak human about just the anxiety of this moment. So, I was proud of him. I was proud to be on the floor with him and to help him through that process. And now the question is, what next? The question is, where do we go from here? And I think you see that with the win in Wisconsin. You see that in the marches and protests this past weekend. But we have to convert that energy into real action and actually be able to change the who's holding the levers of power. And that's where we have to go from now.
Yep, that's where I want to go when we come forward here. Just getting started with Andy Kim, senator from New Jersey. I believe it is true. This is a quote from Cornel West. A 25-hour speech, no matter how eloquent, does not make for Democratic Party strategy. A 25-hour speech, no matter how eloquent, does not make for a Democratic Party strategy. That's the point I think Andy Kim is making. I'll see if I can converge Andy Kim and Cornel West when we come forward. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system. Therapy is a great way to find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABCRadio today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ABCRadio.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Barbecue season is back. Hey, it's Ellen.
And this is Sarah Beth.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that zesty barbecue sauce. I love that it was a little sweet, a little tangy, and with the mac and cheese,
I feel like I tasted the brown sugar bacon first. It was the absolute best combination. Pro tip, 3 sandwiches are always better than 1.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and our Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and U.S. Senator Andy Kim out of New Jersey. Delighted to have him on at the outset of our program today. Before I move on to some other issues, Senator Kim, I want to come right back to this last point that you made and see if I can connect it to the point that Cornel West made, which is that 25-hour speech, no matter how eloquent. And Corey's a Rhodes Scholar. He is brilliant. He is eloquent. No matter how good he is, though, that speech does not make for a Democratic Party strategy. And as you said, the question is where we go from here. My read of this is that Democrats are still fractured in how they're responding to this Trump moment. You got Cory Booker giving 25-hour speeches, and you got Bernie Sanders and AOC out doing rallies around the country, other folk doing a variety of things. I do not see a coordinated, a cohesive Democratic Party strategist. It ain't just me. Nobody sees that in the Democratic Party. Nobody sees that in the Democratic base. So let's probe your question right quick. Where do we go from here, if I can put it in Kingian terms?
Yeah, no, look, I think about this back in 2017. Back then I was just a regular citizen, never been involved in politics before. And what we saw was the Republicans trying to gut the Affordable Care Act. And what that generated was a grassroots movement. And I think that same playbook, that same strategy of mobilizing that in terms of the grassroots and being able to understand that these pieces come together. So yes, those of us in Congress right now, we are trying to take all the steps we can to, for instance, try to stop these tariffs, to try to stop the Republicans from gutting Medicaid, to try to stop the challenges that are facing our communities each and every day. We also see in Wisconsin, we see the effort to try to win back power in terms of elections and channeling that on the ground. In New Jersey, we have a governor's race this year in New Jersey. We have an ability to try to mobilize people for a race that's going to be seen as a barometer for change. And ultimately, we now see candidates stepping up for the 2026 midterms, critical seats that are going to help hopefully flip the balance of power in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Those are the trajectories in which we need to go. You're right. We do need to be able to forge it stronger together in terms of coordinating plays. I often say, I got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, so I often say, let's not play peewee soccer where we all just chase the ball. We have different positions, different roles that we need to play, and that's something that we need to make sure is sharper, but that energy is real, and that is something that we can build off from. And this is not going to be solved just from those inside elected office. It's really going to require a societal movement for us to be able to mobilize against this level of threat to our democracy.
You mentioned tariffs. You mentioned Medicaid. Let's talk issues now for the remainder of our time together. I saw today, as I'm sure others did, the S&P has plummeted 4%. I've been reading story after story after story, as have you, about all the nations around the world who are bracing themselves for the global impact of what many expect is going to be a sort of worldwide recession, perhaps, given these Trumps they're giving these Trump tariffs. So here's my ultimate question: what will Trump's tariffs do for U.S. consumers, workers, and businesses? How are you reading it?
Well, this is one of the clearest examples of self-sabotage that I've ever seen in politics. This is something where, we're going through a level of economic crisis as if it's a natural disaster, but it's not a disaster. It is something that is self-made by Donald Trump. And this is something that I just got off a meeting with, a bunch of business owners in Newark, New Jersey, about just how devastating this is already to their industries. But it's not just about blue states or red states. Everyone across the country is going to be feeling this. So, I still believe we can stop these tariffs. I'm hopeful that we can generate the kind of national pressure. But if we're not able to get the president to change his mind, we need to bear down on Republicans in Congress to do our constitutional duty of taking back the power that has been ceded to the executive branch. But this is a massive problem. This is something that could very well lead us into a recession that is all due to Trump's not just negligence, but just the sheer outright incompetence and the dangers of his policies.
You mentioned Newark. I'm looking at my schedule now. The mayor of Newark, it must be a New Jersey thing. We got Andy Kim on today in our first hour. It's a Monday. Next Monday in our first hour, the mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, is our guest. So, again, must be a New Jersey thing. But Andy Kim today, Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark, in this very hour, 1 week from today. Let me just ask you, what you mentioned the governor's race. Of course, Ras Baraka is running for governor in New Jersey. So you heard Andy Kim mention earlier a governor's race in New Jersey. That would feature one Ras Baraka, again, our guest 1 week from today in this hour. What agency, to your point, Senator Kim, what agency does Congress have in this moment, if any, given what Trump has already done about these tariffs? I mean, there are some areas in which he's moving where it appears that not just that anybody doesn't want to push back on him, but that he has a sort of outsized authority and control as president. So my question again is, what agency does Congress have in this moment where he is advancing his tariffs?
Well, we have on our side the Constitution, which clearly indicates that taxes are those that are controlled by Congress. They are levied by Congress. Tariffs are a tax, and this Trump tax is something that is being unconstitutional in terms of the way in which it's being implemented. The president does not have the constitutional right and duty to be able to impose tariffs of this magnitude. He is trying to cite that there's a national emergency. It's a flagrant abuse of power to try to use that as a means to be able to put in global tariff tax regime. We are starting to see Republicans in Congress getting very concerned about this as well. There is legislation out there that would be able to revoke a president from being able to do this type of tax if Congress does not approve it. I am trying to see if we can mobilize bipartisanship on that front. And again, for those that live in red states or congressional districts, we need that mobilization to be able to put the pressure on these Republicans to say, please do your job, stand up for this separation of powers, and do not just pledge fealty to a president that is so clearly sending our country down an economic path of disaster.
As we're talking about tariffs, Donald Trump has announced that there'll be an additional 50% tariff on China. He's threatening now an additional 50% tariff on China. And so this is about to get worse before it gets better. But everybody around the world, as I said earlier, is bracing for the impact of these tariffs. And again, Donald Trump has just announced he is threatening at least an additional 50% tariff on China specifically. Just think about all the goods that that are in your space right now. Pick something up right now near you and see if it says made in China underneath it. Just grab anything in your space right now as you listen to Andy Kim and me and see if it doesn't say made in China. And Trump wants to put an additional 50% tariff on China. I digress on that for now. Let me move from these tariffs to Medicaid, the other issue that you mentioned. It wasn't quite the 25-hour speech that Cory Booker gave, but during a 6.5-hour marathon voting session that lasted until 2:30 in the morning, your amendment to protect Medicaid for millions of Americans and caregivers was rejected by Republicans. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, right now, when you look at these tariffs and the tax that Trump is levying, also right now the Republicans in Congress are leading an effort that would potentially gut upwards of $800 billion from Medicaid. And when I say Medicaid, I'm talking about health care for 2 million people in the state of New Jersey out of 9 million. 1 in 3 kids in my state gets their care through Medicaid. We're talking about people with disabilities, people who are seniors on long-term care or nursing homes. This is so vital to our care and our nation right now. And to what point? Why is it that they're trying to gut Medicaid or levy these taxes on us through these tariffs that are hurting small businesses? The reason why they're doing this is that they want to give $4.5 trillion of tax cuts to people like Elon Musk, people that are so wealthy that they have their own space program. That is something that I hope people understand. You got to follow the money. You got to see who is benefiting from what Trump is doing. And there you will see that it goes back to a level of patronage, a level of corruption that is something that needs to, the American people need to have their eyes wide open to. And so that's what I'm trying to show and try to draw attention to with this attack upon Medicaid. They try to make it seem like people on Medicaid are lazy, they don't want to work. That's not the case. These are people that need care the most in our country, and people that we need to make sure we're stepping up to. Otherwise, just the level of damage, lives will be lost, people with disabilities, seniors, and others. And that's something we have to stand up against.
Yeah. I want to quote from you during your floor remarks. I quote now from Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey. "This morning, I needed to rush up to my father as he took a bad fall. I had a long and emotional conversation with his caregiver about caring for and tending to his wounds and about his limitations. I'll be honest with you." This is Andy Kim speaking from the floor of the Senate. "I'll be honest with you. It's hard leaving his side to drive straight here to the Capitol tonight for votes that could very well determine if aging seniors like my father will get the care they need," close quote. It's always nice when senators hear from other senators who are dealing with these issues in real time. What kind of response did you get when you told the story of having to deal with your father in a fall, literally before you went to cast your vote on a Medicaid bill?
Well, I wanted to show that this is about being human, that each and every one of us, we have loved ones that have been sick or need care. And that's what we're talking about. This is not about just dollar signs and numbers and figures. This is about people who are struggling right now, including those of us in the Senate. And look, I was able to get a couple of Republicans to vote alongside me, not enough to actually get the amendment passed. But it gives that sense that if you talk human about things, if you talk personally and break through the noise, that this doesn't seem like it's just some epic tribal battle between two parties. It's about those who are seeking to make sure that Americans who need help get the care that they need versus those that, again, are trying to take that away to give to the billionaires that already have enough. They have plenty, and they don't want to share it with the rest of us. And I hope that people are understanding of, again, what's at stake. And that's how I hope that, I'm a Democrat that won a congressional district that Trump won. I know how difficult it can be to navigate the politics, but I always found that when you speak personally, when you try to show that, this isn't coming from a place of partisanship, that has the best chance of trying to break through in this unbelievably hyper-partisan, polarized time.
Senator Kim went on to say from the floor of the Senate, "I can only be here voting today because a caregiver is there looking after my father right now. These caregivers deserve someone looking after them," close quote. But his amendment to protect the Medicare for millions of Americans went down in defeat thanks to Republicans who voted against it. We'll keep our eye on Medicaid, but that is just another one of many issues that we need to be concerned about. Of course, in the era of Donald Trump, what happens to those on Medicaid as Republicans turn their back on this long-standing program. You mentioned your congressional seat that you won, that Donald Trump had previously won. Let me just ask you right quick before I move to two other issues before I lose you. How has your election, I mentioned earlier you are the first Korean American to serve in the U.S. Senate. How has your election, to the extent you think it has, changed politics in New Jersey?
Well, first and foremost, when I stepped up to run for Senate, I had people telling me there's no way that I can win. I'm a son of immigrants, married to an immigrant. I don't come from a political family. I'm not I'm not from a well-off, well-connected family. And look, as mentioned, there were 0 Asian Americans in the U.S. Senate from the entire East Coast of America. And I had people tell me I'm the wrong kind of race. I'm the wrong kind of minority to be able to win a statewide race. So I'm glad I was able to defy those. But not only that, I was able to change how politics work in New Jersey. You were mentioning there's a governor's race that's happening right now. A reporter asked me, well, how do I feel about the governor's race? And I said, well, I'm happy there is a competitive race because, frankly, in New Jersey, for so long there were no competitive races because our machine politics was already predetermining who was going to win. So, I'm proud to be, Cory Booker's sidekick in the U.S. Senate. We're the only all-minority delegation in the U.S. Senate in the entire country. We're representing a new, younger generation stepping up into politics that are coming at it from a different perspective and with a different level of energy. And, that kind of push, fighting against corruption, fighting against, just the same old broken politics that people are just sick and tired of, not just in New Jersey, but around the country. I think that's what I'm trying to bring to bear.
It is pretty amazing when you think about how white and how male the U.S. Senate has been since forever. And there is one state that has a black American and a Korean American representing it, and that's New Jersey. That's a big deal. You got an Asian and an African American representing that state, and I celebrate that. Again, in case you just tuned in, he mentioned the governor's race. Raz Baraka, the mayor of Newark, is our guest on this program next Monday in this same hour to talk about his gubernatorial campaign. That could be history making as well. Imagine if he pulls this off, you'd have a black governor in the state of New Jersey and a Korean and an African American in the Senate. No other state could even come close to that. So we'll talk about that next Monday. I got 2 minutes left. Let me give it to you right quick, Senator Kim. You voted to block arms sales, or at least certain arms sales to Israel. Many senators have not had the courage to do that. Tell me very quickly about that vote.
Yeah, look, it's something that I really spend a lot of time thinking through. I'm somebody that, sees the challenges that are there right now and the prolonged entrenched war. I'm trying hard to be able to mobilize, to be able to get, Edon Alexander, a hostage that's from New Jersey, out. But what we also see is that there's no military-only solution to this problem. And I say that as someone who worked in counterterrorism, I worked in Afghanistan, I've been in war zones. There's no military-only solution. And what we have to see right now is we have to have the leaders stay engaged in diplomacy at a time when Netanyahu removed himself from the diplomatic talks. And also he is engaged in a full blockade of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, which, I say, look, hostages should not be leveraged in negotiations, nor should humanitarian assistance to civilians. So, I think it's important that we push as hard as possible to keep the diplomatic talks, get the talks back up and running, to try to get this negotiation through. We cannot allow the resumption for violence, which we're seeing right now. I mean, this is something that's just going to lead to a long-term occupation of Gaza if it's not something that is dealt with through diplomacy. So, I felt strongly about that as someone who's worked in diplomacy and national security before, that we have to put a stand down now.
He is the first Korean American ever in the U.S. Senate. As he puts it, he's Cory Booker's sidekick. So you got a Korean American and African American representing the state of New Jersey. Senator Kim, you're always welcome on this program, sir. Thanks for your insights. Good to have you on. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on annual retirement contributions. With Robinhood Gold, the perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Senator Cory Booker is standing in solidarity with Americans opposing the Trump administration, criticizing Trump's actions and economic uncertainty during his first 100 days.
There's a lot of challenges before this country right now, so I'm just grateful.
Booker highlighted these issues, speaking on his marathon Senate speech on ABC's This Week. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visits the White House today to discuss new U.S. tariffs and Israelis' war in Gaza. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said on CBS's Face the Nation the new global tariffs address national security issues and aim to reset U.S. power. He highlighted the need for domestic production of medicine and semiconductors. And the Connecticut Huskies are the champions of women's college basketball for a 12th time. UConn defeated South Carolina 82-59 on Sunday to capture the title, capping off a 37-3 season. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers rode into Oklahoma City and put a beat down on the team with the NBA's best record. The Lakers dominated OKC with a surprising 126-99 win. 30 points and 6 assists for Luka Doncic. LeBron had 19 points and 7 assists. The Lakers play OKC again Tuesday night. The Clippers are off until Wednesday. Their 4-game winning streak has them in a tie for 5th place in the Western Conference with Golden State, Memphis, and Minnesota. The Connecticut women's basketball team had to beat USC and UCLA in the NCAA tournament before winning the national championship on Sunday. It was still a marvelous season for the USC and UCLA programs. Both teams were in the top 5 most of the season and put LA on the map in women's college basketball. UCLA was ranked number 1 in the nation for 14 weeks. USC and UCLA finished the season with a combined 65-7 record. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Renee Graham, Boston Globe's associate editor and columnist, who I'm pleased to have back on this program. Renee Graham, how are you today?
I'm, well, it depends, but I'm here. I think that's the important thing.
No, I think that answer, if it depends, is true for all of us, and certainly for those of us in the media business, as you and I are. Our mood depends on what alert we just got on our phones. Right, every 2 minutes there's a new alert, so our mood sort of depends on what's happening. I just talked to Andy Kim, senator from New Jersey. Of course, as you know, he's the junior senator. Corey's the senior senator. Corey, as we all know, was on ABC News yesterday reflecting on his 25-hour marathon speech of days ago. And I want to move past Corey, but again, given he was on ABC yesterday, given that Andy Kim was just on, and given that you wrote a piece about this, let me just get your take on Cory Booker and what it means, and we'll move forward. I said to Andy Kim moments ago that I was reading a story, one of many stories in preparation for today's program, and one story had the headline, was Cory Booker's 25-hour speech a filibuster, a protest, or a 25-hour performative stunt? The answer, yes. It was all of the above. I saw your piece, Renee Graham, Cory Booker and the immeasurable power of one voice. Tell me more.
I agree with the idea that it was a stunt. But as I made really clear in my column, stunts can also be inspiring, and it could be mesmerizing. And that's what this was. And it was interesting just sort of to watch what happened throughout the day, where people were kind of tuning in a little bit, and then people kind of understood what was really behind this. It was this crystallization of everything that has happened in this country in the last 70 days under the second Trump administration. And just hearing this sort of litany of atrocities, laid out, but also threaded through that the best of America and what America could be, and talking about someone like John Lewis, but also talking about John McCain, and John McCain understanding when it was time to cross the aisle and do what was right for the country. It was really, really powerful, and I was surprised. By the end, people were starting to treat it a bit of as a sporting event, like, oh my God, can he make it? Can he make it? But it was also something more than that, and it was like he was being propelled by righteousness, if you will, and the idea that he was speaking not just for himself, not just for the state that he represents, New Jersey, but speaking for everyone in this country who has been manhandled by the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. And yet, at the end of the day, it is just a speech, a long speech, no less, but just a speech. Again, back to my conversation with Andy Kim moments ago, one speech, no matter how eloquent, is not the same as Democratic Party strategy. And in that regard, I don't know that much has changed since the speech, Renee. It was just a great speech.
It was a great speech, but no, the Democrats still do not have power, to change what happens in Congress, but they're not using the power they have. And I think the combination of looking at Senator Booker's speech and then the hands-off protests that hit every single state over the weekend, I think that should let them know people aren't sitting idly by and letting this happen. They're acting, but they also want their representatives to act. And they want them to stop doing things like voting for Trump cabinet nominees. Why that's still happening, I have no idea. Yeah. That kind of thing. They want more from their elected officials, who seem to be sort of stunned. I understand how it felt in the first few days. And I keep likening it to when you're a kid and you're running around your mama's house and you break a vase, and for about a minute you just stand and stare at that vase before you figure out how you're going to lie your way out of what you just did. Yeah. We're past the staring stage. This has to be the action stage. And, it's, I get it. It's been an absolute tsunami of stupid executive orders and ridiculous statements and, just as I said earlier, atrocities. But it's time for Democrats to act. So I think the sort of the 1-2 punch of Senator Booker and the protests should really be inspiring the Democratic leadership to do more than they've done so far.
I want to come back to the protests in just a second, but since you put your finger on this about Democrats not using the power they have, I couldn't agree more. What is your read on why Democrats are still playing nice, still voting for Trump nominees? My read at the top of it is that Chuck Schumer is the wrong person for this job at this moment. I've said that before. This audience has heard me make express that concern on more than one occasion. So part of it, I think, is their leader, Chuck Schumer. But beyond Chuck Schumer, why do Democrats keep playing nice, voting for Trump nominees even now?
It's a good question. I didn't understand it 2 months ago. I really don't understand it now. I don't know what they think they're going to gain by attempting to play nice with Trump. It's never going to work. You cannot curry favor with Donald Trump. If they're worried about any kind of a backlash, then they need to be out of the job anyway. Mm-hmm. Their job is to stand up for this country and to stand up for the constituents, and they've been failing at both. And I absolutely agree with you. Chuck Schumer, thank you for your service. It's time to go. He is not the man to lead this party anymore, and he's still stuck in this idea of the way things used to be.
That's right.
That way is dead and gone. These are not Republicans that you can negotiate with. You have to handle them with the same hammer that they're administering to you. And they're not doing that. So what little power they may have, they're relinquishing, thinking that somehow they're going to be able to win Trump over and make the electorate happy and deal with this sort of mysterious people out there who they think they can win back. You're not going to win them back. What you need to do is mobilize your base. That's what Donald Trump always does. He gives them exactly what they want. And I feel right now like the Democratic leadership is not listening to its base.
I studied these protests over the weekend. For one reason, I had a show to do today. Secondly, because I just love reading the homemade signs. I always get a kick out of reading people's homemade signs at these protests. They are telling in a variety of ways. How do you think we should read? How are you reading, once again, these weekend protests?
I think those protests were really important, and a lot of people were saying that these protests were comparable to what we saw in 2017 when Donald Trump began his first term. I also think, that was a women's march. This is everybody, because what's happening in the country right now, everyone is feeling that impact. So you had people out there at the protests who were identifying as Republicans and saying, why was this person laid off and why are they doing this to the federal government? I mean, people are getting this sort of weird civics lesson right now, and I think that's what was really showing in what government does and how dysfunctional things have become when you've essentially made all of these agencies inoperable, if not disappeared them entirely. So I think that, the idea of people being out there and representing so many different constituencies, and I think that's what was important. And also because it wasn't just about Trump, it was also about the way that Elon Musk has been sort of stomping around because he bought himself a president, and now he feels like he can do whatever he wants to do. So I think it was the range of constituencies where it was federal workers, and it was teachers, and it was college students, and the LGBTQ community. It was so many different people, just to give you the breadth of what is going on in this country right now and how it's impacting people.
No naivete here, Renee, in asking this question, but why do you think that Democratic Party leaders are not listening to the base?
I think this has always been the problem with the Democratic Party, and I feel like I've been saying this for years. I don't adhere to what Republicans stand for, but when push comes to shove, they get in line. You know what I mean? They understand the bigger picture. And I never feel like Democrats. You have the progressives, you have the centrists, and there's all this sort of infighting. Meanwhile, you don't have the Senate, you don't have the House, you don't have the White House. I mean, at this point, do you think maybe you should be doing something different? And maybe there's something to be said for that. And they were so kind of, this is too much, and this is going to alienate. No. What you do is you energize your base. That is what is going to carry you. And I don't think the Democrats have enough of a sense of who their base is. When they sit back and say things like, we've lost, the working class voters, you got 92% of black women, and I would bet you that the majority of black women in this country are probably working class, or at least a strong percentage of them. So you keep writing off and feeding into these ridiculous narratives that the Republicans have, that the working class means white people. it doesn't mean white people. It means a lot of people. And Democrats keep feeding into the wrong things. The same way that you had someone like, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton talking about, trans rights and how that's a problem and you can't have, people who are trans on girls. What are you even talking about right now? It's like these are the things they're getting caught up in. They want to sound like soft Republicans. That is not going to get you back into power.
Nope, it is not. I read Renee Graham's stuff, and one of the pieces that she wrote recently that I want to give her a chance to sound off on when we come forward had this headline. Trump says he wants a third term. Believe him. Subhead, the president is a habitual liar. But when he talks about subverting the Constitution, take him at his word. We'll talk about Trump and his third term interest when we come forward with Boston Globe columnist Renee Graham on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting. On Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up. And we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting Town Hall. Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. The first 100 attendees will receive a complimentary air purifier. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stopped, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You've lost so much weight. How'd you do it?
I got medical treatment for weight loss through Zelty and lost 50 pounds. I struggled for the longest time, but Zelty makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelty providers can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight, like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others.
I've heard those medications can help you lose weight, but aren't they expensive?
Zelty can help get the medication covered by insurance, so it's as little as $0 a month.
What if you don't have insurance?
No problem. Zelty may be able to help you get other GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% off the price of name brand medications.
I'm ready to start losing weight. How do I get started with Zelty?
Just text.
Text SUNNY to 200-300 to get started today with Zelty and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text SUNNY to 200-300. That's SUNNY to 200-300. SUNNY to 200-300.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Renee Graham of the Boston Globe, Boston Globe's associate editor and columnist. Renee, I think you're right about this. Trump says he wants a third term. I think we have to believe him. And it's not just him, but the people around him who are already plotting for a way to circumvent, to subvert the Constitution. And they didn't wait long to even, start to trial balloon this conversation. What do you make of that part?
Trump, the same way that we're looking at what Trump is doing in his second term, he had 4 years to plot and plan what he wants to do if he got back into office. I think he's doing the exact same thing with this idea of running for an unconstitutional third term. He always does this. He floats an idea about something. First of all, he doesn't even float it. He kind of throws it out there, but then he makes it seem like there are other people talking about it. Well, some people say this. Some people say that. And then suddenly he's saying it. It's not other people anymore. You know, so it's one thing if you have a conservative congressman who decides, we should, change the Constitution so that Donald Trump could run for a third term because he's so damn good at being president. But it's not Trump saying that. But then he keeps upping the ante. He keeps turning up the volume a little bit more. But we also know what he said, last summer when he was talking about how, hey, if he becomes president again, you won't have to vote again. He's always saying these things, and people kind of blow them off or don't really think don't take him seriously. And I have no idea why, when he says terrible things, people do not take him seriously. He talked about tariffs. We have tariffs. He talked about dismantling DEI. He's dismantling DEI. All of these things that he talked about doing, and people said, he talked about getting revenge and retribution. That's all he's done the last almost 3 months now. So I don't understand why people aren't taking this seriously and aren't looking at ways that he has every intention of trying to circumvent the Constitution and run for a third term.
You and I call it circumventing or subverting the Constitution. He says, and I quote, he's talking to NBC News, there are methods by which you could do it. That's what he told NBC. There are methods by which you could do it. What do you make of that comment?
Well, see, then smart people sit around and go, well, are there methods? Are there ways to actually get around doing this? Then that sort of keeps the conversation going. And again, you get people who know better starting to debate whether or not there's a way this can happen. They've already thrown out the idea that, well, what if J.D. Vance heads the ticket in 2028 and Donald Trump is his vice president? And then if Vance wins, then he steps down and Donald Trump can serve. Well, again, there's that old Constitution getting in Donald Trump's way again. Because the 12th Amendment is very, very clear that if you are not eligible to run for president, then you are not eligible to be vice president. He knows that he can't do this, but he sure as hell is going to try a way to make it work because we know. You're talking about a man who incited an insurrection. Is anyone willing to doubt that he's not going to try a way to get around the Constitution and serve a third term? If he shouldn't even be a guy that he even is going to run for a third term. But I just think it's absurd for people not to take him at his word with this because, again, this is a person who incited an insurrection when he did not like the outcome of the 2020 election.
Our remaining moments with Renee Graham of the Boston Globe when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Progressive knows you've got enough to worry about in life.
Hi, it's your life again. Feel like another year is just slipping away? Yeah, remember all those New Year's resolutions you made? You still haven't finished the first book. Just 19 more to go. I mean, if we're being honest, it wasn't a very realistic goal. Have you ever considered that you intentionally self-sabotage? So what's that about?
So let Progressive protect your home and auto, because you've got enough to worry about. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA
LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the Boston Globe's associate editor and columnist Renee Graham, who I'm delighted to have on this program for these next 3 minutes. Renee, I want to end with a bit of a philosophical conversation with you, I think. I think philosophical is probably the right word. I am curious as to what you think has to happen for the tide to turn against Trump. What has to happen for the tide to turn against Trump? Is there a moment where he goes too far? Does he get in trouble in the red states and they turn against him for the hell that they're catching? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what you think has to happen. I mean, none of us has a crystal ball, but here's my point. We see very clearly the direction that we are headed in. What arrests that development? Anything come to mind?
I mean, I think there's two things. I think, one, the economy. If the economy continues to crater, that is certainly going to start to have an impact on him. But I also think something we need to watch very closely is what is going to happen at midnight. And what is going to happen with this young man who they illegally deported. Not deported. They kidnapped him. Deportations at least have due process. This young man they kidnapped and sent to some horrible prison in El Salvador. And he has been told, Trump has been told, he has got to bring him back. The administration admitted that they made what they called an administrative error. Fine. Now they're appealing this to the Supreme Court. And we're going to see if the Supreme Court either steps in and sides with the Trump administration, which would be catastrophic, or if the Supreme Court sits down and lets the lower court ruling stand. That is so much... It points so directly to where we are going to be as a country, and if there's a shred of democracy left, or if we've just gone into the kind of authoritarianism where a sitting president can ignore the courts. And I think there are chances he's already done that, but this case is so clear cut. You've been told to bring him back, and you have delayed that and not done it, and you've got at this point less than 12 hours to get that done. If they do not do it, then we have to see. If the Supreme Court, again, stays out of it, fine. But if the Trump administration still decides we're not doing it, then that is a massive problem, and that has to be a turning point in this country, because that literally is about the Constitution and the rule of law. You cannot get to that more directly than that.
So in the last 60 seconds, what happens if we get to this sort of tete-a-tete, mano a mano, this duel between Trump and the courts? What happens?
I think we have to get people back out in the streets. This is massive. If you have court rulings and Donald Trump's administration decides, well, we're just going to ignore them and do whatever the hell we want to do, that's the whole ball of wax in my mind, in a way. It's like that you have to – that's a king. That is exactly everything Donald Trump has been behaving like. That would really solidify him as a king if he is beholden to no one, including the judicial system.
Yeah. We shall see. The clock is ticking, as Renee Graham just pointed out. She's Boston Globe's associate editor, I should say that more slowly, and columnist. Renee Graham, good to have you back on. We'll do it again. All the best to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Tavis.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Senator Cory Booker is standing in solidarity with Americans opposing the Trump administration, criticizing Trump's actions and economic uncertainty during his first 100 days.
A lot of challenges before this country right
Police war in Gaza. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said on CBS's Face the Nation the new global tariffs address national security issues and aim to